Yo, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back into the show, and I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in, no matter where you're checking in from. We are on the doorstep of the preseason finale, and that means the nerves, the excitement, the energy, it all goes up another level. Philadelphia has one more chance to really see what this roster looks like before cutdown day, and that cutdown day is no joke. Every single team in the league, all 32 of them, have to go from 90 players down to 53, and they have to do it in one swoop by 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time on Tuesday, August 26th. That is the harsh reality of the NFL. Guys who have been grinding all offseason, pouring their heart and soul into training camp, getting limited reps in the preseason. Some of them will never put on an Eagles uniform again. Others will fight their way onto the practice squad. Some will latch on with another team. But that is the business side of football, and it's brutal. So going into this final matchup against the New York Jets, we need to have a very close look at the roster bubble. Who's locked in? Who's fighting for their lives? And who might sneak onto the 53 because of versatility, special teams impact, or a little bit of roster gymnastics from Howie Roseman? That's where things get fascinating. We can talk about the stars, we could talk about Jalen Hurts, about A.J. Brown, about Saquon Barkley, but the real drama right now lives in the margins of the roster. The difference between being the 53rd man and the 54th man is the difference between making hundreds of thousands of dollars in the NFL or having to figure out if you're going to the XFL, the UFL, or just waiting for a call in November. That's the tension this week. At quarterback, there are no questions at the very top. Jalen Hurts is your guy, the leader, the QB1, the face of the franchise, and that's not changing. Tanner McKee is sitting comfortably as QB2, and even though he's been dealing with a finger injury, the coaching staff clearly trusts him enough that his job is not in jeopardy. Where things get tricky is at QB3. Kyle McCord has been taking snaps with the second team, while McKee is sidelined, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson has been left behind in the pecking order. McCord has flashed some ability. He's shown he can step in and at least keep the offense functional, and that means Friday night against the Jets is massive for him. Does he do enough to earn a spot on the active roster? Or do the Eagles roll the dice, cut him, and pray he clears waivers so they can stash him on the practice squad? That's the dilemma, and every throw he makes in this last preseason game could be the difference. Running back is also worth monitoring. Saquon Barkley is your number one back, and he looks rejuvenated in green. Behind him, the rookie Will Shipley has done more than enough to show he belongs. Those two are safe, they're locks, and they'll be leaned on heavily once the regular season kicks off. The real question revolves around A.J. Dillon. Fans keep insisting he's too good to cut, but roster math doesn't care about reputation. The Eagles are loaded at multiple positions, and sometimes that means a tough veteran gets squeezed out. The silver lining is that Dillon, being a vested veteran, wouldn't have to pass through waivers. If the Eagles cut him, they could bring him back without losing him to another team. That's the type of roster gymnastics that can come into play when you're trying to maximize depth across the board. So Dillon isn't necessarily gone if he gets cut, but his role might look different than what people expect. At wide receiver, you've got your stars in A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. They're untouchable. Jahan Dotson has had a great camp, and the front office just traded for John Mechie, which was no small move. You don't give up Harrison Bryant and a draft pick just to cut a guy like Mechie 2 weeks later. That tells you he's locked in. The intrigue comes from the depth pieces. Darius Cooper has been one of the revelations of the offseason. Not only has he been running with the first-team offense, but he's also producing when he's out there. He's catching balls from Jalen Hurts, he's making plays down the field, and he's contributing on special teams as a returner and a gunner. That's exactly what you want from a bubble receiver. But when you add Mechie into the equation, it complicates things for players like Johnny Wilson and Anias Smith. Wilson, by the way, had that scary card off at practice on Tuesday, which could open up another path. If he starts the season on the physically unable to perform list, that buys the front office a little bit more time. It's chess, not checkers, when it comes to roster building. Tight end is another spot where you need to look closely. With Harrison Bryant shipped off to Houston, the Eagles are leaning on Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra as their top two. That lines up with what they've done in previous years. Philadelphia has been comfortable going into Week 1 with just 2 tight ends on the initial roster, then elevating a third from the practice squad when needed. Kylan Grandson and E.J. Jenkins are in a head-to-head battle for that emergency role. Jenkins seems to have the edge right now, but Friday could determine everything. A couple of good snaps, a key block, maybe a big catch, that's the type of thing that swings the decision. On the offensive line, the foundation is set. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, and Lane Johnson are your starters. Those names are cemented in stone. Drew Kendall, the rookie from Boston College, looks like a lock because he's backing up Jurgens, who is coming off surgery, and the Eagles love having insurance at center. Matt Pryor is also safe because of his ability to slide between guard and tackle, something this coaching staff values enormously. Depth along the offensive line can be the difference between winning and losing in December, and the front office knows that better than anyone. Behind those guys, however, things get tricky. Players like Brett Toth, Cameron Williams, Miles Hinton, Kendall Lamb, Trevor Keegan, and Shondurk Powell are all fighting for one, maybe two spots. Powell is particularly interesting. The coaching staff has been quiet with him, not showing too much tape, almost as if they're hoping they can sneak him onto the practice squad without other teams catching on. That's another element of roster strategy. Sometimes teams intentionally hide players during preseason games. When you take all of this into account, the offensive roster bubble is crowded and complicated. Quarterback 3, the last running back, wide receiver 5 or 6, tight end 3, the final offensive lineman. These are not just afterthoughts. These are decisions that can shape how the team survives a 17-game grind. Injuries are going to happen. Attrition is part of the sport. So when you're the general manager and you're sitting in those meetings with Nick Sirianni and the staff, you're not just thinking about who the best 53 players are right now. You're thinking about who gives you the flexibility to handle a crisis in November or December. That's why versatility is such a buzzword when it comes to roster construction. If a player can contribute at multiple spots, his chances skyrocket. If he only does one thing, he better do it at a high level. This game against the Jets is the final audition. For some guys, it's their Super Bowl. It's their last chance to put something on film, not just for Philadelphia, but for the other 31 teams watching. Every single snap is graded, every rep matters, and when you're on that bubble, you know you can't afford to take a play off. That's what makes the preseason finale so fascinating to watch, because while the stars are already safe, the drama for everyone else is as real as it gets. Switching over to the defensive side of the football, this is where things get just as fascinating because the Eagles are deeper right now than they've been in years. Honestly, you could make the case this is one of the most complete rosters we've seen in Philadelphia in decades, and the defensive depth really highlights that. Starting along the interior defensive line, you already know Jalen Carter is a building block for this franchise. He looks dominant, powerful, explosive off the snap, and he's going to be wrecking offensive lines for a long time. Next to him, Jordan Davis has shown real growth, not just as a run stuffer, but as someone who can collapse the pocket. And when you combine his size with Carter's quickness, that's a nightmare for opposing guards and centers. Moro Ojomo, Ty Robinson, and Gabe Hall are also part of that mix, and the Hall situation is especially interesting. He was an undrafted rookie out of Baylor, a player most people thought would be camp competition. But with the trade of Thomas Booker, Hall has essentially worked his way into being a lock. He's got that slim, athletic build that allows him to knife through gaps, and the front office clearly values his potential. So at defensive tackle, you're talking about Carter, Davis, Ojomo, Robinson, and Hall as safe, which is a strong, deep group. On the edge, the Eagles continue to stack talent. Nolan Smith is entering a crucial year. Josh Uche is there to bring more juice off the edge. Jalen Hunt is part of the rotation, and Azeez Ojulari is another name locked into that group. That quartet gives you speed, bend, and a variety of pass rush moves. The Eagles want waves of pressure, and this group delivers exactly that. But then you start getting into the names that live on the bubble. Patrick Johnson, Byron Young, Jacob Sykes, Abu Okoronkwo, and Twan Powell-Ryland. Johnson has been the standout here, maybe the most impressive defensive player in camp outside of Carter. He's built a reputation as a preseason star, and he's backed it up this year again. You look at the Cincinnati game, he was all over the field, creating pressure, forcing mistakes. Against Cleveland, he had that interception that nearly went back for 6. He sniffed out the reverse, made plays behind the line of scrimmage. He looked like a guy who simply has to be on the 53. But the politics of the roster sometimes complicate things. Powell Ryland was a draft pick this year, and when you spend draft capital, the front office tends to give that player the benefit of the doubt. He hasn't flashed much, but cutting a rookie so quickly is not something Howie Roseman loves to do. Byron Young was once a third-round pick, so the pedigree is there. Abu Okoronkwo has a track record of production in the league. Jacob Sykes showed something in Week 1. These are the types of tough decisions Philadelphia faces. Do you reward Johnson for being the better player this summer, or do you keep the draft pick who hasn't shown it yet, hoping he develops down the line? That's where the balancing act gets tricky. Inside linebacker has been one of the surprise strengths of camp, and that's not something we've said about the Eagles in a long time. For years, this organization has treated linebacker like an afterthought, and now suddenly they might be the deepest they've been at the position in decades. Zach Bond is clearly one of the starters. He's been steady, physical, and a leader in that group. Next to him, the competition has been fierce. Jahad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Smail Mondon have all been pushing for that second starting role, and it honestly could go to any of them depending on how the staff wants to mix personnel. That's a great problem to have. For once, Philadelphia has actual options at linebacker, not just bodies filling in. Whoever doesn't win the starting job still becomes a valuable rotational player, and depth at linebacker can be huge when injuries inevitably hit. At cornerback, the locks are exciting. Quinyon Mitchell is one of the top young corners in the entire league. He looks the part of a true number one, physical at the line, sticky in coverage, confident going up against any receiver. Cooper DeJean has been making plays all over the place, not just at corner, but also showing versatility in the slot and as a returner. Jacorian Bennett, brought in via trade, is a talented young piece who the front office isn't going to give up on. Then there's McWilliams, a mid-round pick who has been getting more and more snaps at outside corner, and he looked solid against Cleveland. Those four feel like locks, and that leaves a very complicated battle among the rest. Keely Ringo, Adoree Jackson, and Eli Ricks are the headline names sitting right on that bubble. Ringo has the physical tools, no question about it, but the reality is he has not put it all together yet. The quad injury he picked up hasn't helped either, and his snaps with the first team have been dwindling. His preseason opener against Cincinnati was rough. Jamar Chase ate him alive, and those plays stick in the memory of coaches. Adoree Jackson, on the other hand, hasn't exactly been lights out either, but he's been given the bulk of the reps at CB2 just because no one else has seized it. Ricks is the wild card. Long, athletic, rangy, he flashes at times, and there's no denying his potential, but he hasn't cemented himself as a sure thing. All three of those guys can make the roster, but none of them are locks, and if Philadelphia decided to cut or trade one, nobody should be shocked. The Eagles could even scour the waiver wire and add someone who gets cut from another corner-deep team. That's the type of roster move that happens around this time of year. What makes this year so unique is that the Eagles are not trying to find bodies to fill holes. They're trying to trim down an embarrassment of riches. That's why fans are so locked into every snap of the preseason finale. It's not about whether Jalen Hurts looks sharp or whether A.J. Brown gets in rhythm. It's about whether a bubble player can make one last big impression. Can Kyle McCord solidify his case for QB3? Can Patrick Johnson force the staff to keep him despite the numbers? Can a corner like Eli Ricks flash enough to earn his way in? Those are the storylines that make this week such a roller coaster. For the players, it's the most pressure-filled moment of their lives because they know Tuesday afternoon is looming, and with it comes the harsh reality of who stays and who goes. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our Philadelphia Eagles. And don't be shy. Share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In an unprecedented move that has sent shockwaves across the American football landscape, the Philadelphia Eagles have reportedly finalized the acquisition of Micah Parsons from the Dallas Cowboys, a move that is already sparking debates, speculation, and endless chatter among fans, analysts, and insiders alike. While official confirmation remains pending, multiple sources close to the situation suggest that the deal is structured with complex draft considerations and conditional compensation that could reshape the trajectory of both franchises for years to come. Micah Parsons, widely regarded as one of the most dynamic defensive players in the NFL, has been a cornerstone of the Cowboys' defensive unit, known for his remarkable combination of speed, strength, and versatility, which allows him to disrupt both running and passing games with equal effectiveness. The rumblings began weeks ago, as whispers of dissatisfaction within the Cowboys' locker room and contract disputes started surfacing, fueling speculation that Parsons' tenure in Dallas might be nearing an unexpected end. Analysts are already dissecting what this acquisition could mean for the Eagles' defensive schemes, considering how Parsons' unique skill set could fit alongside existing stars, potentially creating one of the most feared defensive fronts in the league. Social media is ablaze, with fans expressing a mixture of disbelief, excitement, and strategic predictions about how this move might influence the NFC East rivalry and the wider playoff picture. The implications of this alleged trade extend far beyond the mere swapping of a high-profile player, as insiders speculate that this could be the beginning of a larger restructuring strategy by the Eagles management, who seem intent on making a statement in pursuit of a championship window that has tantalized fans for years. Micah Parsons' impact on the field is undeniable, but questions remain about how his transition from the Cowboys' defensive system to the Eagles' framework will be managed, especially considering the differences in coaching philosophy, defensive alignments, and supporting personnel. Rumors suggest that Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni may have had a personal interest in securing Parsons, believing that the linebacker's aggressive play style and instinctive pass-rushing ability could be the catalyst for a defensive renaissance that propels the team deep into the postseason. Meanwhile, Dallas insiders hint at internal friction that may have accelerated negotiations, with certain front office executives and coaching staff reportedly divided on whether retaining Parsons long-term aligned with their strategic vision. Analysts are meticulously mapping out potential formations, blitz packages, and hybrid schemes that could exploit Parsons' agility and raw athleticism, while balancing the needs of Philadelphia's existing roster. And mock drafts are being rewritten almost hourly. The speculation alone has already impacted media coverage, merchandise interest, and even betting lines, as bookmakers adjust odds in anticipation of a player movement that could reshape not just a single team, but the dynamics of an entire conference. The buzz surrounding this potential transfer has generated unprecedented social media engagement, with fans and commentators dissecting every leaked report, cryptic social media post, and insider hint as if decoding a high-stakes mystery. Sports podcasts, live streams, and digital forums are filled with passionate discussions about what Parsons' arrival could mean for the Eagles' defensive balance, while simultaneously debating the Cowboys' long-term strategy in potentially letting go of a player of such prodigious talent. The rumor mill paints a vivid picture of locker room dynamics, contract negotiations, and personal motivations that might have influenced Parsons' willingness to explore new opportunities, suggesting that the story is far more layered than a simple trade. Speculation has even extended into the psychology of team rivalries, with analysts imagining how the addition of Parsons might tilt the power balance in NFC matchups, not just against divisional opponents, but across the league. Fantasy football enthusiasts are already recalculating projections, while betting markets adjust odds for games months in advance, reflecting the gravity of a player of Parsons' caliber changing uniforms. Every potential scenario is being debated at length, from the immediate impact on defensive statistics and win-loss records to the subtler cultural shifts within the Eagles' locker room as a dominant personality integrates into a team with its own established hierarchies. The story's pervasiveness in sports media is unmatched, creating an environment where every statement, gesture, or hint from team executives is analyzed, amplified, and scrutinized, making it difficult to separate fact from speculation, yet fueling the fascination in equal measure. Rumors continue to suggest that the intricacies of the deal involve nuanced conditional picks, salary cap considerations, and even performance-based incentives that could influence both Parsons' motivation and the Eagles' long-term financial flexibility, demonstrating how high-stakes these negotiations have become behind closed doors. Insiders claim that Parsons' willingness to consider a move is tied not only to financial and contractual terms, but also to the prospect of playing in a system that maximizes his skill set, provides a realistic path to a Super Bowl, and places him in a position to cement a legacy among the NFL's elite defenders. The media landscape has responded with feverish analysis, as columns and sports shows dedicate hours to evaluating what this rumored transaction could mean, dissecting game film from previous seasons, projecting statistical outputs, and debating scheme fit with obsessive precision. Even minor hints, such as Parsons' social media activity or offhand comments during interviews, are being parsed for hidden signals of intent, with fans treating every subtlety as potential evidence of imminent confirmation. Meanwhile, Dallas' organizational strategy is being scrutinized intensely, with former players, analysts, and rival executives weighing in on the potential consequences of losing a cornerstone defender, speculating about whether the Cowboys might pivot toward youth development, free agent acquisitions, or further trades to compensate. The speculation feeds itself, creating a cycle in which every rumor amplifies anticipation, and every analyst's prediction is examined as if it were gospel, producing a national conversation dominated by conjecture and anticipation rather than certainty, yet capturing the imagination of fans like never before. In essence, the NFL rumor mill is thriving, with Micah Parsons at its center, and every day without confirmation only adds to the sense of drama, urgency, and intrigue surrounding the story. As the story continues to unfold, it has become clear that the potential arrival of Micah Parsons in Philadelphia is more than just a player acquisition. It is a cultural event within the NFL ecosystem, shaping perceptions of team identity, competitive ambition, and league hierarchy. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Philadelphia Eagles, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.